Hi, my name is Raj, and I'm a fiction writer originally from India, but now living in Aotearoa, New Zealand with my family. I wanted to share with you an everyday practice that has given me enormous joy, growth, and benefit at precisely some of the most difficult periods of my life. I call it applied mindfulness, and what follows is a small introduction. How applied mindfulness has taken me step by step, moment by moment, doing nothing but living ordinary life towards so many of my deepest goals. Perhaps it's worth saying that this is also, in a sense, my first ever work of non-fiction. This is a journey that can start right where you are, no matter where you are, with the moment that you're in. And here are my hopes for where it can take you. Never doing anything more than being where you are. If you're struggling with the moment that you're in, I hope to offer you a life belt. If you wish to make the most of life's loveliest moments, I hope to show you how. If you would like to live and act with a clearer, deeper, richer sense of your place within an interconnected whole, I hope to show that you can. These are among the biggest promises that I hope to keep if you continue watching. But here's another one that's just as important. Each of these promises will be tested out by you, following no one but yourself. I'm here only to offer a way, then to get out of the way. At every stage, my ideas will remind you of others. That is exactly as it should be, because at every stage I stand on the shoulders of giants. For example, I owe my sense of mindful practice and the goal of greater compassion to Buddhist tradition. My sense of karma, dharma, yoga and Leela to the Bhagavad Gita and Hindu ways of seeing. I've also gained so much from Stoicism, Taoism, and from a feeling of submission to an infinite knowing and will akin to Islam. You will see these resemblances and others as we go. My only contribution is to bring them together in my own way, practice this synthesis in my everyday life, feel the changes that result, and offer this practice to you. To see what happens when you give it a try, right where you are, no matter how far or different your path is from mine. I think of the practice as applied mindfulness, and its highest aim is to attain and live constantly with a way of seeing that I call leelavision. Applied because it is mindful practice applied to whatever you're doing, at any time, at all times. To the humblest activity, the most pleasurable, or the hardest. If there is one thing to remember that always unlocks everything else I'm about to say, it's this. Be in or return to the moment that you're in. Try to inhabit it fully, but also try to be nowhere else. Strangely, Paradoxically, this grounding becomes the springboard for the most incredible journeys. I promise to show you why and how. You don't have to set aside particular times or settings to practice being present, although you can if you wish. You can do it on a crowded train, while making love, facing a serve, or biting into a burger. You can also do it when you're in pain, grieving, or suffering. Let's talk about that first. We all recognize feeling overwhelmed by the sheer enormity of an experience or a reality that feels as if it will break or drown us. We simply cannot bear it. We simply cannot cope. It is already insupportable, and if it is a change or loss that cannot be reversed, we can't even imagine the prospect of such a future. My only suggestion is, don't. Try not to let yourself imagine the prospect of such a future. Instead, remember one aspect of any such appalling reality that's also always true. That you only have to face or bear one moment of it at a time. Not its crushing permanence all at once. Just this instant of it, and then the next one. It changes the odds in a crucial way. All of you, with all your accumulated resources, strengths, and inner knowledge, coping with this instant alone. No more. Then this one, and so on. Yes, it's easier said than done. But, in the alternative, there is a fictitious you, a projection, being destroyed by an impossible load that in fact doesn't exist. I promise to explain why very soon, but please remember this, because it could be your life belt. That amid devastation as great as you can conceive, there will perhaps be just one truth on your side. That you only have to face one moment of it at a time. Perhaps it will be more direct and honest to speak from my own experiences than leave you to find yours. When I have been in survival mode, which is often, it is mindfulness that has brought down to scale whatever Goliath I'm struggling with. Reduce the pain to a much smaller version of itself, only the amount I need to cope with at that moment. Reduce thereby my tendency to spiral when worst case scenarios from an imagined future or resurrected trauma from the past threaten to sweep me away. But wishing to be present nowhere beyond the moment has another important effect. It unifies me because no part of me is trying to look or run away. Instead, this is the state I'm aiming for through mindful practice. To be wholly present within this instant. My awareness as activated as it can be to everything that is happening within and around, but nothing beyond that. All of me, all my accumulated and varied strength, resilience, and knowledge, distilled into this state of awareness that seeks to be nowhere else. That in fact has accepted inhabiting this instant of pain with all the challenges that it brings, and is not trying to flee it. As the Tao Te Ching suggests, when the impossible seeming journey ahead of you becomes only the step you're taking right then, the odds change in interesting ways. Over time, step by step, so does the journey. In my personal dictionary, I call that unified state yoga, which is not far from its literal meaning, a state of unity, a self-summation. Yoga, in which every part of you feels as though it is facing the same direction and trying for the same thing. Nothing lost to distraction or the wish to be elsewhere. No inner tugs of war. As much as coping with pain, such a vision of yoga is an ideal platform to fully know pleasure. Making love in this state, enjoying a great meal, walk, conversation, match, or movie, where all of you is doing nothing but relishing every moment of it. Applied yoga, anywhere you are. When various parts of you awaken to the most delicate, nuanced, concealed particularities and possibilities of each moment, because all your attention is fully there, because you're unified and wish to be nowhere else. As a result, the most delicate, nuanced, until now concealed responses and insights start to arise from within you, because you're carrying no weight on your shoulders beyond this instant, which is why you can bring so much to it. Strange transformations happen then, in my experience. The moment starts to glow in all sorts of ways, and so do you. I wrote a poem about this glow. In almost every moment are more blessings and possibilities than you have noticed. Even the most ordinary seeming scene could so easily be otherwise, because even the most stable and long-established routine is in fact only ever a house of cards. Imagine just one card removed. For example, the health of someone you love, from the most mundane of days. With such an awareness of how fragile and precious the arrangements are that we often take for granted, each of them begins to glow. And I believe we glow as well, from suddenly feeling happier to be fully here, more grateful for the privilege of yet another ordinary moment. There is the glow of these near invisible blessings that are woven into our normal and of our recognition of them. But presence brings alive another constant source of light. The glow of imagining, then enacting new possibilities, whose hints are already present, waiting to be spotted by those most fully there. I believe we all yearn for magic, and for the magic not to be a trick. This is perhaps my biggest promise, that there's magic all around and within, pre-existing as well as waiting to be created whenever you're ready, and none of it is a trick. But many utterly human things come between us and this magic, for me as much as anyone else. In my case, it has been mindfulness applied to the passing of ordinary life that began to reveal what these obstacles are. First, my habits and how often they kicked in even before my intentions, whether or not they were appropriate to the moment. In many cases, if not most, I found myself on the way to a habitual response, no matter that it was totally wrong for the situation. A response such as anger or haste. Over time, over many, many times, noting and noting down my habitual responses have made me slightly better at sidestepping them, especially when they are irrelevant or ineffective as responses to a moment of joy or pain or anything. Reflecting on my habits has made it easier not only to resist their pull, but to recognize some of their sources. In my biases, my traumas, and my blind spots, just to name a few. There's also laziness of different kinds, fixed beliefs, inherited assumptions, and, did I say biases? Now, when I pay attention to a moment, whether joyous, painful, or neutral, I am as well looking out for the me that is rising to meet it. And there's a special pleasure in recognizing, then trying to do exactly what the nuances of the instant require. It's like evading many opponents in football, except these are your own habituated, over-hasty patterns of response. And then to know the pleasure of spotting and opening and doing just what is needed to score the goal, which is to see, then, if possible, spread glow. To give yourself the chance to know this pleasure over and over, to meet the challenge in big and ordinary things of evading those ever regrouping patterns, is also to build a practice, gradually but constantly, that starts to feel like a new normal, an ever strengthening second nature that recognizes, then resists old habits, that comes to trust and enjoy this mode of traveling light and seeing more, aware, adaptable, attuned, and, over time, more free of anxiety, because as you deepen the practice of bringing out only what you have to in order to answer the needs and glimpsed possibilities of a moment, you remind yourself that in pleasure or pain, this is quite literally the most we can do. Often, what comes between us and noticing glow are the tracks, grooves, lanes, limits, and aims of our ego. Some of these are easier to name, others need patience to trace, because their pathways and origins are buried deeper within. I think of these as my bindings, my blinkers, and the practice of becoming aware of them has also been that of gradually loosening them. What I would like to repeat to myself as much as to you is that there is everything to be gained in loosening them. The greatest of win-wins, diminishing our own suffering, so much of which is made worse than it needs to be by these very habits. Deepening our pleasure, deepening our awareness of our own good fortune, even in the most apparently ordinary moments. Valuing the life we have as we live it, but then also, like a whole other sense, our sixth or even seventh, revealing ways to bring into it new, real magic. Because the one who starts to notice their bindings, bears in mind their blinkers, notices further remarkable things, such as other people. Other people become fuller, clearer, and more vivid to the eye that is truly looking at them, not through the filters of habit, nor in haste or from self-interest, but looking purely for the enjoyment and richness of sharing a moment, then letting possibilities awaken as they will. To see someone else with no rush towards gain or judgment or habitual categorization is to gift yourself a portal towards so many kinds of glow. Above all, it is a chance to take in another person in some of their wholeness, some of what makes them admirable and unique. Equally, we are giving ourselves a chance to see where they might be coming from, perhaps even some of their formative habits, traumas, and blind spots. To truly try to see someone else is to gift yourself the opportunity to feel wonder, surprise, awe, understanding, and possibly compassion. Best of all, people sense when they are being looked at in this way. Often, they and the moment come back at you with the most unexpected gifts, new possibilities, connections, brought into being by the openness, the glow that you projected because of what you noticed and reached towards. All the kinds of glow I've been speaking about, in the background, in other people, in ourselves as we fully inhabit and respond to the moment, where do they originate? And what else can they yield? My best answer to the first question is that an extraordinary quantity of psychic resources is freed up once we commit to being solely within the present. All the bandwidth we would have lost to lugging around the past or spiraling into the future, and other near automatic patterns of projection, rumination, and behavior that aren't relevant or helpful, is now conserved, newly available as attention for other aims, such as looking closely at what is actually before us or around, or happening within. This is where the insights come from, I believe, that can suddenly make every part of a moment glow, and how the imagination awakens. The incredible journeys I promised, this is how they begin. When we truly take in all sorts of ways what another person might be communicating and what they might need, or what the place around us, our immediate location, or indeed the wider environment or society needs. Simultaneously, we sense, perhaps as never before, the full range and depth of our capacity to respond. In my private vocabulary, drawing on the Bhagavad Gita, I see such attunement as an ideal state in which to attempt to align our karma, the actions and words we choose, as closely as possible with Dharma, which, for me, is the incredible constant journey of figuring out how best to make our unique contribution to the greater good. And then there is Leela, which is perhaps the most enigmatic of glows, often nearly invisible, or else utterly unexpected. Leela is every manner of connection, consequence, irony, and implication that results from any happening. For example, the many shades of meaning that can follow even a tragedy, sometimes bringing in its distant wake renewal and gain. Leela, for me, is the innate, irrepressible multidimensionality of life. Its inability to ever mean only one thing. Its inability to stop meaning new things. What I call leelavision is an understanding and gradual acceptance of such paradoxes. The ability to see glow beyond the immediately visible or pleasing part of the spectrum. Leela vision is another reason why those pictures of us forever carrying our present pain are misleading. Because so much about those pictures can change in ways that will only be revealed over time. In ways that will be significantly determined by how open we remain to the constant presence and possibility of Leela in our lives. And the best way to gift ourselves this often magical mode of reconsidering, reinterpreting, and hopefully accepting how our past and present have come to be, and the utterly interwoven totality of everything they've given us, is to try to be as free of habit as possible. Blinkers and bindings, fixed perspectives, repeatedly yield similar views of things. In my experience, the person who is trying to bring fresh eyes to each moment is much more likely to see fresh links between moments or between entire phases of life. This is Leela vision, the flow of life appearing in a new light, from which can arise liberations, lightness, a fresh, freer start. And most of the time, Leela vision comes to you without you chasing after it, all because you are available and unencumbered, simply as present and open of heart and mind as can be. This is the true magic I promised, waiting to be noticed in everything that we have lived. To find it, all we must do is listen to the magicians always ready to speak within us. Imagine having a pair of friends who know everything about you. Now, imagine the confidence of being sure, nevertheless, that these friends wholly accept you, just as you are, and that they're always with you. And finally, that they can offer you perspectives and advice based on their awareness and acceptance of all that you are, even the parts that cause you pain and shame to acknowledge. For me, these friends whose voices or nudges are always arising within us if we are attuned enough to be aware are our capacities for mindful presence and for Leela vision, gifting us wholeness, strength, insights, and choices. They are in fact exactly the friends our best self tries to be for other people that need us. Yet, somehow, the friends we so often fail to notice inside ourselves. Even amid our greatest challenges, even at those times when nobody else can reach us to help, our friends' voices are always there, reminding us, above all, to take on no more than one moment of the emergency at a time. And gradually, if we keep listening, that our current struggle is not our whole story, that it can be approached or understood in multiple ways, and that we are neither alone nor resourceless in facing it. Amid several other voices within and around, persuasively yelling the opposite, amid a sense of the ground caving in and wreckage everywhere, these are the truths our loyal, ever-present friends, applied mindfulness and Leela vision try to restore. Our own wholeness as we attempt to cope, and the wholeness of our lives that we have not lost. But it's easy for their advice to be ignored. Partial views in which something directly before us overwhelms us with its immediacy, its immense impact of one kind or another, are so powerful. And of course, they have their truth. An ancient Indian word for seeing things in this limited way is Maya. And I succumb to Maya vision all the time until I'm able to remind myself to listen to its opposite. Perhaps it is one of our most embedded habits to be drawn in to such an extent by the force of an ongoing happening, we forget everything else that still remains true. In this essay that is all about inhabiting the present, we must also mention this sorcery of the present. Maya vision, the magic that makes it look like the eclipse ate up the sun. Maya vision, or the way in which one view of things, or one way of linking them, or one current urgency that has us in its grip, can seemingly take over as the all. Being unified and wholly present is perhaps the best antidote to the ever possible illusion that the present is the whole. Being fully available to ourselves in the moment earns us the space and the attention to hear voices besides the loudest ones. That's when we might notice what Leela vision is saying, the friend that has known all our moments, and who never fails to surprise with what they have considered and connected. The two friends I have learned not to ignore because always working together, one holding open the door for the other, They gift me resilience, reconciliation, compassion, and, based on them, new options. Everything I dream of being to others in my life, all the light and magic I would love to see and share, my inner BFFs, applied mindfulness and Leela vision, show me how. How to reorient yourself to await, then respond to the specific nuances of each moment. How to survive those times when you can take on no more than the present moment. But equally, how to thrive, to unify within, then choose, so as to enjoy to the utmost and contribute your utmost to each instant of an experience. How to give yourself as clear a vantage point as possible, ever freer from the blind spots and bindings of ego, to imagine the ripple effects of your words and actions, and thereby to initiate karma towards the goals of greater compassion and dharma. Finally, how to listen and remain open to Leela, which is another name for the wholeness and endless manifoldness of life. How to do all this and constantly improve at it while doing only one thing, stepping lightly and aware into whatever you're living. But wait, there's more. My great hope in doing this video is that applied mindfulness will bring similar kinds of magic to you. As I said at the start, don't trust me, test me. Tell me in the comments if you find, through practice, a clearer path to yourself, to seeing others, to the choices you have, and to embracing and befriending Leela. And tell me if you don't. Yet, if I'm honest, there's even more to be gained. For what follows, I repeat even more vehemently. Don't trust me. Test me. Tell me what you find. And, equally, tell me if you don't. What if there weren't only changes to be initiated, then experienced, no matter how life-enhancing? What if there were a whole other dimension to know? If you're entirely secular, much as I used to be, and have come this far, thank you. All I'd say to you about the sections that follow is, not a single thing changes about the practice. It's up to you to keep watching. I would hope you do, so that my ideas are given the most vigorous shaking. Applied mindfulness, practiced in my waking life as honestly as I'm capable of, has led me to all the gains described above. And alongside, with the same open eyes and noticing just as precise, it has led me as well to a presence I call God. It started with coincidences, small, inconsequential, with nothing practical to be gained from them, except once I'd begun to spot them, their frequency, unlikelihood, lack of relation to any current or popular topic or to an algorithm's manipulation made them impossible to ignore. Years ago, as I began to look out, I set those criteria. I'm recording to this day, often on a daily basis. In trying to live attentively, do no more than notice each moment that I'm in. When direct resemblances appear between unconnected things that are too specific to ignore, I note the details down, with photographs and video wherever possible. Carl Jung called them synchronicities. I too have tried to think about them usefully in my own way. As I said, I began by deciding to eliminate anything much mentioned or potentially contaminated by a computer algorithm presenting me with what it believed I'd wish to see. We were on a walk with our new puppy, and our daughter came up with a middle name for him, Theodore. Not an especially common name for a dog, you'll agree. Around the very next corner, we met a family with an older dog. The dog stopped to play, and our daughter asked the other dog's name. It was Theodore. In my diary of coincidences, only the most startling, unlikely, uncontrived, and specific ones would do. That too, if they occurred within a narrow time window. I set the outer limit at a day and a half. Even with these rules in place, they haven't stopped coming. Instead, over the years, I began noticing even stranger aspects to them. Aspects that started adding up to an utterly observation-based sense of an entity, a presence, an intent or force that it then took me years to call God. The coincidences seemed to know my mind. More accurately, a direct physical echo would shortly follow a thought, random and fleeting, that I hadn't shared with anybody. Often, someone else would suggest the act that led to the coincidence. I have a passing idea, and shortly after, my wife suggests watching a show in which a detail crystallized exactly my unvoiced thought, which was about nothing popular or current. When these happen almost daily, you look at your notes and go, can it all just be coincidence? I chose to think otherwise. After documenting hundreds of these, I chose to see an entity to whom my thoughts are available at will, as is the ability to produce a resonance, if it so wishes, by nudging someone else's mind to say the thing that is necessary. I chose to see these qualities as evidence of someone's omniscience and omnipotence. The scope of my noticing grew. I moved from striking but insignificant moments to the big events of my life, the turning points and major forks. Finding love, even losing it, moving towards the things I thought I had chosen, the places I ended up studying in, then living. People I had known from different continents, entirely unconnected, apart from their link to me, turning out to link up to each other, over and over. The work I'm doing, down to the writing and sharing of this. To an extraordinary degree, the more closely I have looked, the more I've found coincidences and chance. Choices certainly, which I fully own in all their outcomes, except to say an astonishing number of times they have been choices reacting to chance. Cumulatively, I now see these as the work and will of that same entity, who, it seems, is directing my path with some plan of their own, and very kindly dropping me hints about this the whole way. At some point, based on the scale of what I was observing, I chose to think of them as God. But you don't have to believe any of what I just said, because in giving applied mindfulness a try, here are the wonderful things available to you without believing me. In the practice and the testing, there is no following anyone. In the practice and the testing, it is solely your experiences that you look at. In the practice and the testing, even if you come to disagree with most of my conclusions and claims, my hope is that you will still find greater clarity and strength. Because the practice of mindfulness is so much older and greater than anything I can prescribe. All I'm saying is, bring it to your life at all times and try to notice all the links and light you find. Yoga outside a yoga studio. Rather, your unified state of being in everything you do. Mindfulness beyond sessions of meditation, although those are certainly helpful. Compassion, including for yourself as a constant practice. Richer pleasure, less impossible pain. An ever-present openness to understanding yourself, others, and the shared flow of our lives from more sides. More lightness and light. More perspectives, connections, possibilities to see and to spread, for which my names are magic and glow. More of the best of you in each of your reactions to life. More paths to take, friendships to deepen and make. I think of these as my secular promises. Pretty good, right? One day, I watched a program full of the first-hand accounts of near-death experiences, NDEs. The more I listened to details that felt impossible to dream or make up, such as facts or happenings verified later that the survivors could not possibly have known, and common features the NDEs shared, such as a feeling of being surrounded by an all-knowing, all-embracing consciousness, the more it felt as though these people had known in whole a dimension I had only glimpsed. in the course of an extreme experience, they had seen a completed jigsaw puzzle of which my perception, drawn from years of ordinary waking life, had found only scattered pieces. But I felt convinced it was the same picture. For me, the NDE accounts are the equivalent of the photos being sent back by the new James Webb telescope. From reaches of the universe, scientists had only been able to theorize about until recently. I chose to believe that the NDE survivors and I were talking about encounters with the same entity. And while the depth and power of their experiences are humbling, it did thrill me to think that ordinary open eyes, doing no more than paying attention to ordinary moments, can also take us there, if only in flashes over many years. Each of the secular promises awaits being tried and tested. Then there is this, every bit as true for me. The part about seeing your way right through to God. No matter your starting point, in faith or in its absence, no matter what other traditions or practices you follow. Because all the new pictures you will receive of the moments of your life and the Leela woven through its parts will be unique to you, as will be your picture of God, if such starts to form. Perhaps that is what they intend, to appear anew to each one of us right where we are. Before I get out of the way, as I promised at the start, one final reminder that all this, secular and beyond, has been about the same practice. It is all the one practice to notice the changes in this realm that we can measure and in the other, to enjoy and to endure, to survive and to thrive, to see oneself more clearly and the other, to act from a place of light, wishing nothing more than to share it, to be open to seeing everything anew on this side and perhaps the other, to know deeper gratitude to all that we are linked to on this side and perhaps another. It is all the one practice, and it can always begin or resume right where you are. It is all the one practice, and it only asks you to embrace your own life as it unfolds, reveals, and invites you in, one moment at a time. Over to you, wherever you are.